Welcome to the Developer Spotlight on the Fold Out Gaming Podcast. In the Developer Spotlight, we sit down with VR industry professionals. This week, Jay and Nat are sitting down here. Eric Odeldahl, creative director at Fast Travel Games. Eric, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Hey, while we're saying thank you, we got to thank the sponsor of the podcast real quick, Asterion Products. They make play space mats that help you stay in place, glowing VR headset stands. Check them out on Amazon. Code FOLDOUT10 will save you 10% off. And Eric, we're excited that you're here. Tell us a little bit about what to expect with Vampire: The Masquerade Justice.
Vampire: The Masquerade Justice is a stealth-based game. It's built for the Quest headsets and for PlayStation VR2. And you play Justice, vampire from the clan Banu Haqim, who travels to Venice to find who killed your sire, the one who turned you into a vampire. And get an ancient relic back.
I like that. I did not know sire was the word for that. That's cool, though.
I knew.
You knew that. They don't say it enough on What We Do in the Shadows. The game's coming out November 2nd. That's the day this podcast is actually going to be coming out as well. Tell us, you're this close to launch. How are you feeling? The journey's almost at this pivotal point.
We're almost there. So I'm extremely happy. I'm really, really proud of what the team has built. We've been at this for a couple of years. Also, honestly, I'm very, very tired. So I'm really looking forward to the game coming out so I can rest a bit.
I noticed that people who reviewed the game early focus on the stealth and action of the game, but there's also a mystery narrative at play. Can you tell us more about the puzzle elements of the game?
Absolutely. The majority of the game is stealth-based. I mean, you're a vampire, you're a predator, but we're mixing it up quite a bit with environmental puzzles. And also there is a murder mystery kind of thing in the narrative as well. But the puzzle mechanics in the game are mainly based around your ability to manipulate stuff in the environment, this being VR, but also the correct use of your different vampiric disciplines and your heightened senses that lets you visualize things in the environment that are invisible to the naked eye.
The game talks about it's got a main story and even side quest. In VR, too often we get these short games. How many hours are we talking with your game that people are going to enjoy it?
In playtests, we've seen between 10 to 15 hours for a playthrough. But for a completionist, if you want to complete all the optional challenges and find all the hidden collectibles and stuff like that, we think it's going to take you more than 15 hours. If you want to play and complete the optional mission challenges such as never being seen or not killing anyone, etc., it basically raises the difficulty level quite a bit. I personally love it. I think it's super fun, but that basically it adds a really interesting skill element to the whole stealth thing.
Nice. I know there's definitely a lot of completionists out there, so they'll get lots of hours from this game. I noticed there's so many zombie games and so many shooters out there, especially for VR. What was the inspiration that led to this being a vampire game?
Vampire: The Masquerade Justice. It's based on a tabletop role-playing game called Vampire: The Masquerade. It's been around since mid-90s, around mid-90s, maybe a bit earlier as well. And I'm an avid role player myself. I've been playing since I was 9 years old or something like that. So there was that, but there's also the fact that our previous game, or one of our previous games, is set in the same universe. We made a game called Wraith the Oblivion Afterlife, which is a horror title. And it's actually set in the same world a couple of years before the story in Justice. And having worked with Paradox, a Swedish game studio here who owns the IP, started talking to them and they talked to us and they, said, so how about a vampire title? And we said, yeah, of course. So the reason we basically liked the idea of building something set in the Vampire the Masquerade universe, and we felt that it was a great setting for really cool VR mechanics.
Nice.
Is it the first vampire VR game that's out there? I can't think of another off the top of my head.
I don't know, honestly. There might be some. We're really proud of letting the player drink blood in first person.
That is pretty cool.
So it's one of those things that it gives you this full vampire fantasy. We feel there might be other titles that I'm unaware of.
There are a lot of free games out there.
Yeah, there might be something, but I think definitely as far as mainstream VR games, I don't think anybody's done vampires yet, so that's really exciting. I think that Venice is something that's a little more familiar in video games. I remember, I think it was Tomb Raider 2 back in the day. You played a little bit in Venice, and that's exciting. But why Venice for this game?
So there were we had a couple of different settings. We bounced around early on, but we initially talked about in the team. We talked about London as a setting, but it gives you some logistical issues. Let's say, what do you do with all the pedestrians and all the cars? Basically, a lot of stuff that you basically need to focus on tons of stuff that doesn't necessarily make the game we want to build easier. We had some other suggestions as well, but then I found some really interesting background stories and lore in the Vampire the Masquerade source books. And Venice is it's the one of the main bases for the clan Hecata and the Giovanni families from the Vampire the Masquerade source books. And there was so much to dig from there, some really cool stories. They're necromancers, really evil people. They felt like, these are good antagonists. And also it is a beautiful city and it's very different. It's something you recognize. We felt we wanted to do something, with the canals and the different buildings. We definitely added our own visual touch and to Venice. I really hope that it doesn't look too much like real. I think real Venice is probably nicer.
I would hope that real Venice isn't crawling with vampires. I know that some people who tried this early, Q2C, they were talking about on their podcast, and so far everybody's raving about the game. How do you feel about when it launches? You think people are going to be super excited, kind of excited? How are you feeling on your end?
I think and I hope a lot of people will be very excited. I think if you like stealth games, if you like to be, if you're the type of player that only wants to, get in the middle of the action immediately, wave your hands around, etc., then you're going to have a pretty hard time in our game. You're going to die a lot. But if you like to plan, if you like to strategize, if you like, figure out how to pick your victims off one by one, stay in the shadows, the game lets you be incredibly powerful. And I think if that's your bag, you're going to love the game. I think so. I think actually the people who don't like it will probably not like it at all, but the people who like it will love it.
One of those.
That's my bag, so I'm stoked.
I feel like it looks so cool, and I watched some of the gameplays. I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks so intriguing. But I am definitely one of those people that's like, woohoo, I'm gonna jump in and murder everyone. And so I might not do as well. I'll have to chill myself out.
There's a couple of powers that let you basically wreak havoc as well.
Nice.
We have so vampires wield discipline, different vampiric powers, and you can choose to focus your experience points, etc., on the more in-your-face violent stuff if you want to, or you can choose to focus on the more stealthy, stay in the shadows type of stuff. So I think we'll have something for you as well. But yeah, in Venice, bullets hurt a lot when they shoot you. so yeah,
I'll just attack and then run.
Attack and then hide.
And hide, yes. And so Speaking of hiding and stealth, can you tell us more about how the stealth mechanics work?
We've designed it. It's very much, in a sense, a classical first-person stealth game where you basically as long as you stay out of sight, as long as you stay in the dark corner, if you crouch, this is also, of course, super nice in VR. It's easy to get a sense of if you're being seen or not in VR. You can look out and hide behind stuff. As a vampire, as a predator, basically finding strategic spots above your victims is a very good strategy. Trying to find ways to get up or getting rid of the opposition above so they can, is a good strategy. Being a vampire, you can turn invisible, which means that you can actually move among your enemies as well. They won't be able to see you unless you bump into them or stuff like that, right? So we have a ton of stuff like that, and also, of course, you can distract enemies by causing noise. Say, violently murder someone in one corner of a square, cause the others to run that way and pass, or just if you want to do something a little more peaceful, just throw something that clatters and causes some noise distraction.
Nice. I don't know if you play Demio at all, but this kind of reminds me of the assassin in Demio.
Yeah, I played Demio a lot. It's built by another game studio, another VR studio here in Stockholm, so we're not that far from each other.
That's awesome. We love Demio, so we're very excited for this.
Yes, and so for people out there listening, basic strategy of the game, or as you've said, kind of the best strategy, come at this thing like a giant ice cream sundae. Just start at the top and work your way downward. It's unusual to hear a game is launching on Quest and PSVR2 rather than Quest and PC. You want to tell us about how that happened?
It basically happens. We've got a really good relationship with both Meta and Sony, and we decided to focus on Meta Quest and PlayStation platforms to begin with. We're kind of this is our biggest game so far, and we're kind of in relation to a lot of other VR studios, we're kind of a big VR studio game. But we still can't do everything at the same time. So we've usually shipped on one platform at a time. But this time we really wanted to sim launch on both Quest and PSVR2. We love the PlayStation VR2. I personally love the haptics, the HMD haptics, the controller haptics, adaptive triggers. I think that it adds such a lot to the immersion to games. So that's one reason. That said, we love PC as well, and at the moment we don't have news about PC for Vampire Justice, but who knows what happens.
One of those stay tuned kind of moments. I'm excited. PSVR2, it's at the moment it just feels kind of like an underused technology. Like we keep waiting for these great games, but I'm excited to try this on both. Because, like you said, the haptics. Did you use the headset haptics on the PSVR?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Drinking blood with VR haptics is a cool thing.
It's getting too real.
But it is. I love the game both on Quest and on PSVR2. I think both platforms have their strengths, and of course you can do fancy graphics on a PS5 that you can't do on a Quest, but we're really, really pushing the Quest 2 and 3. The game is really good on all platforms, and it's a bit different. There's the sense of mobility is, of course, better on a Quest because there are no wires, but you get some other stuff to weigh up for that on PS5.
Do you want to give us a little bit of what's different on the Quest 2 versus Quest 3? How far did you take what the Quest 3 can do?
So, of course, there's the inbuilt better resolution, which actually adds a lot. We've basically tried to keep gameplay in parity with Quest 2 and Quest 3, so the game plays the same. But visually, it's we've basically upped visuals where we can. There's some fancier water. There's more effects. We have more anti-aliasing on, etc. So it does look better on the Quest 3. It does, but I think it looks awesome on the Quest 2 as well.
Nice. I am wondering if there were any challenges that came up in making this game compatible with both the Quest and the PSVR2, especially since the Quest has a lot less power than the PS5 and the PSVR2.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I actually I get asked this question a lot, and the thing is, more power doesn't necessarily mean easier to develop for, because you tend to use that power. It's like it's there, so you create new problems for yourself with platforms with more power. There's a certain ease of working with a Quest in comparison to a dev kit or a test kit from a PS5, but so I would say there's actually keeping gameplay in parity and sticking to that to make sure that, regardless if you have a Quest 2 or a Quest 3 or a PS5, you should get equally good game. I think that's always the challenge of releasing on multiple platforms. And then basically finding the strengths of each platform as well. And so you don't do a lowest common denominator thing. I think we're succeeding. I hope we are.
Nice. Is there ever a time when you just want to go off the rails and do like, oh, PSVR can do all this stuff with haptics, and oh, Quest 3 can do like this MR stuff, and you just kind of like want to go down that rabbit hole, but you're like, no, it's got to be the same.
I mean, if you wave new technology in front of game developers, they're just kind of like, gimme, we want it. So yes, of course we feel that. But we decided, with haptics for the PSVR2, we actually said, okay, let's really use that. And even though, I mean, we do have good haptics on Quest 2 and Quest 3 haptics, they feel kind of different. I think we're doing a really good job there. For the PSVR2, it's a different story. It just feels better.
Yes.
But we also decided with the whole MR thing that not for justice. We love MR. It's really cool. But I keep coming back to when we started Fast Travel Games 7 or so years ago. We said that to build good VR games, you have to start from VR and end with VR. Basically, you have to design for VR. And Justice it's a VR game. It's not an MR game. So if you basically don't want to do any, what's it called, half measures, right? You want to do if we're doing something, we want to do it really, really well. So for this game, it didn't make sense. For other games we make, it might make sense, especially if we start planning for it really early and make sure we incorporate it in the design somehow.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't work well for this because it'd be like, well, instead of Venice, now you're going to be in your living room. Not as cool.
Not as cool, no. Well, it depends on your living room, I guess. But
I guess that's true. Well, is there anything else we haven't covered today that you'd like to share with our listeners? Maybe any teasers for new things?
I hope that if you play our game, I really hope you like it. We'd love to hear from you. We've got different, so we're on basically all of the social media. We've got a Discord, etc. So I mean, contacts. Let us know what you think. And both the good and the bad. We love to hear some good sometimes too. but it's like, let us know what you think, and I really hope you like the game. And if you like that, check out our other stuff as well.
I'm so excited.
Everyone who has tried it that I've heard of anywhere is in love. So I'm not too worried about you guys as far as how that comes out.
That makes me happy to hear.
Yeah. And obviously you got Discord, other spots in case people want to contact you. We're going to make sure there's links in the description for that. It's game day. If you want to get the game, we'll have a link to that too. Thank you so much again for coming on, Eric.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's really nice.
It's been so fun.
Hey, and if you're out there and you're listening to this podcast, remember, we're over here on YouTube if you want to come see some of these visuals and see what the game's going to look like if you're still on the fence. And if you're listening to us, you're listening to us on YouTube. We're also easy to listen to on the go anywhere else. So think about VR, and if you always want to be a vampire, maybe it's time to dive on in.
Dive on in.